Hello, science fans. Let's talk about something incredibly important, medicine. When you take a pill for a headache or get a shot to prevent a disease, you're relying on science to make you feel better. But have you ever wondered what's in that medicine that does all the work? The secret ingredient, the star of the show, is called an active pharmaceutical ingredient, or API for short. Think of it like this. If you're baking a cake, the flour, sugar, and eggs are the main ingredients that make it a cake. Everything else, like the frosting or sprinkles, is extra. In medicine, the API is the flour, sugar, and eggs all rolled into one. It's the part of the drug that has the therapeutic effect on your body. An API is a specific chemical substance that is biologically active. That means it interacts with your body's systems to produce a desired change, like lowering your blood pressure or fighting off a bacterial infection. The other components in a pill or liquid medicine are called excipients. These are inactive substances that help deliver the API. They might be fillers to give a pill its size, binders to hold it together, or coatings to make it easier to swallow. But without the API, the medicine would just be a sugar pill with no power to heal. So the quality of that API is, you might say, a very big deal. It's the foundation upon which safe and effective medicine is built. Because APIs are so fundamental to our health, we can't just mix them up in a garage and hope for the best. The process of creating an API is a complex chemical synthesis, often involving multiple steps, precise temperatures, and highly controlled conditions. A tiny mistake at any point in this process could change the final product. It could make the API less potent, meaning it won't work as well, or even worse. It could create harmful impurities that could make someone sick. This isn't like a baking experiment where a slightly burnt cake is the worst outcome. Here, people's lives are on the line. This is where our main topic comes in, Ich Q7. Imagine a world-class cookbook for making APIs. This cookbook wouldn't just have the recipe, it would have detailed instructions on how to keep your kitchen clean, how to check your ingredients, how to calibrate your oven, and what to do if something goes wrong. Ich Q7 is exactly that, a universal set of rules and guidelines that pharmaceutical companies all over the world follow to ensure every batch of API they make is pure, safe, and effective. It's the scientific standard that protects all of us. Consider it. Every time you take a medicine, you're trusting that the people who made its core ingredient followed the rules. So, what exactly is this super important rulebook, Ich Q7? The name itself sounds a bit like a secret code, but let's break it down. ICH stands for the International Council for Harmonization of Technical Requirements for Pharmaceuticals for Human Use. That's a mouthful. But its mission is simple: to get experts from Europe, Japan, the United States, and other regions to agree on a single set of scientific and technical guidelines for developing and registering new medicines. This harmonization means a company in one country can follow one set of rules and have its product accepted globally, which is incredibly efficient and helps get safe medicines to people faster. The Q7 part is just the specific name of the guideline we're talking about today. It's officially titled Good Manufacturing Practice Guide for Active Pharmaceutical Ingredients. Good Manufacturing Practice, or GMP, is a system for ensuring that products are consistently produced and controlled according to quality standards. So, Ich Q7 is the international GMP standard specifically for making APIs. Its purpose is to provide a comprehensive framework that covers every single aspect of API production, from the moment raw materials arrive at a factory to the moment the finished API is shipped out the door. It's all about building quality into the process, not just testing for it at the end. Think about building a car. You wouldn't want the manufacturer to assemble the whole car and only then check if the brakes work. That would be dangerous and wasteful. Instead, they check the quality of the steel, the precision of the engine parts, and the electronics at every step of the assembly line. Ich Q7 applies this same philosophy to making APIs. It requires companies to control their materials, processes, equipment, facilities, and people to minimize the risks that can't be eliminated through final product testing. The ultimate goal is to protect public health by ensuring that every dose of medicine contains an API of the highest possible quality. This guideline is not just a suggestion. For most of the world, it's the law. Regulatory agencies like the US Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, and the European Medicines Agency, or EMA, have adopted ICH Q7 as their standard for inspecting API manufacturers. If a company wants to sell its medicine in these major markets, it must prove that its API was made in compliance with ICH Q7. This makes the guideline a passport for APIs, allowing them to cross borders and be used in medicines for patients everywhere. It creates a level playing field where quality is the universal language. When we talk about quality in the context of ICH Q7, it's not just a buzzword, it's a whole system, a way of thinking that needs to permeate every corner of a pharmaceutical company. The guideline starts by establishing the need for a robust quality management system, or QMS. This isn't just a single person or a small team in a lab coat. It's an overarching structure that defines how the company will achieve and maintain quality. It includes the organizational structure, procedures, processes, and resources needed to make sure every API meets its predefined specifications. The QMS is the brain of the operation, coordinating everything to work towards a single goal, a safe and effective product. A key part of this system is the quality unit. Now, it's a specific group of people, but they have a very special job. The quality unit must be independent of the production department. Why? To avoid any conflicts of interest. Imagine the production team is behind schedule. They might be tempted to cut a corner or rush a testing step to meet a deadline. The quality unit acts as an impartial referee. Their job is to review and approve all quality-related documents, investigate any deviations from the process, and ultimately decide whether a batch of API is good enough to be released. They have the final say, ensuring that business pressures never compromise patient safety. Let's use an example. Say a batch of API is being made, and a technician notices the temperature of the reaction vessel went slightly above the specified range for a few minutes. The production team might think it's not a big deal, but according to the QMS, this deviation must be documented immediately. The quality unit then launches an investigation. They would look at data, interview the technician, and assess the potential impact on the API's purity and stability. They might require extra testing on the batch. Only after a thorough review and a science-based conclusion that the quality was not affected will they approve the batch for release. This formal process prevents small problems from becoming big ones. This whole system is built on the principle of continuous improvement. A good QMS isn't static, it learns and evolves. The company is required to conduct regular internal audits or self-inspections to see if they are following their own rules and the rules of ICH Q7. They also conduct management reviews where top-level executives look at performance data, like the number of deviations or customer complaints, to identify trends and find opportunities for improvement. This creates a cycle of planning, doing, checking, and acting that constantly pushes the company to be better, more efficient, and safer. It's a commitment to excellence that starts at the top. You can have the best rulebook in the world, but it's useless without the right people and the right place to do the work. ICH Q7 dedicates a huge amount of attention to these two pillars: personnel and premises. First, let's talk about the people. The guideline is crystal clear that everyone involved in making APIs must have the proper education, training, and experience to do their job correctly. You wouldn't want someone who has only ever baked cookies to suddenly be in charge of a complex chemical reaction for a heart medication, right? Companies must have a formal training program in place for all employees. This training isn't a one-time thing, it's ongoing. Every time a procedure is updated, employees must be retrained. They also need regular training on the fundamentals of good manufacturing practice and hygiene. This is critical because humans can be a major source of contamination. Think about it. Skin cells, hair, and germs from a cough or sneeze could all potentially end up in the product. That's why personnel are required to wear specific protective clothing like gowns, gloves, and hairnets, and to follow strict hygiene procedures like frequent hand washing. It's all about creating a barrier between the person and the product. Next up are the premises, which means the buildings and facilities. An API manufacturing plant can't just be any old warehouse. It has to be designed and constructed in a way that prevents mix-ups and contamination. For example, there should be a logical flow of materials and people to avoid cross-contamination between different products. The area where the raw materials are received and stored should be separate from the area where the final purified API is handled. The walls, floors and ceilings must be smooth, easy to clean, and made of materials that don't shed particles. It's like designing a hospital operating room, but on an industrial scale. The equipment used in these facilities is just as important. Every piece of machinery, from giant stainless steel reaction vessels to tiny laboratory scales, must be qualified. This is a formal process of proving that the equipment is installed correctly, operates as expected, and performs reliably to produce the desired result. For example, if a reaction needs to be held at exactly 50 degrees Celsius, the company must have records proving that the thermometer and heating system on that vessel are accurate and can consistently maintain that temperature. Equipment must also be cleaned according to validated procedures to ensure that residue from a previous batch doesn't contaminate the next one. Science, it's all about control. Section 5. If it's not written down, it didn't happen. Documentation and records. In the world of GMP, there's a golden rule: if it wasn't documented, it didn't happen. Now, this might sound a bit extreme, but honestly, it's the absolute bedrock of quality and accountability in pharmaceutical manufacturing. ICH Q7 places enormous emphasis on documentation and records. You can think of it as the facility's collective memory. It provides the instructions for how to do things correctly and the proof that they were done correctly. This system ensures that every batch of API is made in the exact same way every single time, even if different people are doing the work. Consistency is everything when it comes to health. The first type of documentation is the how-to guides. These are things like standard operating procedures, or SOPs, which give step-by-step instructions for every task, from how to clean a piece of equipment to how to calibrate a scale. Then there are the master production instructions, often called the batch manufacturing record, or BMR. The BMR is the master recipe for a specific API. It lists all the raw materials, the quantities, the processing steps, the critical parameters to be controlled, like time and temperature, and the tests to be performed along the way. It's basically the blueprint for making one perfect batch. The second type of documentation is the proof, the records. For every batch that is manufactured, a copy of the master recipe is used to create a unique executed batch record. As the technicians perform each step, they record everything in real time. They write down the exact weight of the material they added, the lot number of that material, the time they started the reaction, the temperature they observed, and their signature. This record becomes a complete history of the batch's life. If a question about that batch ever comes up, even years later, the company can pull out this record and trace every single action that was taken. It's a really powerful tool for investigation and accountability. Let's consider a practical example. Imagine a patient has an unusual side effect from a medicine. The drug company can trace the pill back to a specific lot of API. Using the batch record for that API, they can see exactly which raw materials were used, which operators were involved, and what the temperature and pressure readings were at every critical stage. They can review the equipment cleaning logs and the laboratory test results. This detailed paper trail allows them to conduct a thorough investigation to see if a manufacturing error could have been the cause. Without these records, it would be impossible to figure out what went wrong. So documentation isn't just paperwork, it's really a safety net for all of us. Now, we get to the heart of the action, the actual production of the API. This is where all the planning, procedures, and preparation come together. The production process itself is governed by strict rules laid out in ICH Q7 to prevent mix-ups and contamination. One of the most important concepts is preventing cross-contamination. This is the unwanted transfer of material from one product to another. Imagine a factory is making an API for a powerful chemotherapy drug on Monday and an API for a simple pain reliever on Tuesday using the same equipment. If the equipment isn't perfectly cleaned, a trace of the chemo drug could end up in the pain reliever, which could be incredibly harmful. To prevent this, companies use several strategies. They might have dedicated equipment that is only used for one product, or they might have meticulously validated cleaning procedures that are proven to remove all traces of the previous API. They also control the flow of materials and personnel. For example, they use airlock systems and maintain different air pressures between rooms to ensure that airborne particles can't drift from a dirty area to a clean one. Every step is carefully choreographed to keep different products and materials completely separate until they are supposed to be combined. It's a bit like being a traffic controller for molecules. During the production process, it's not enough to just follow the recipe and hope for the best. Companies must actively monitor the process to ensure it's staying within its defined limits. This is called in-process control, or IPC, for instance. If the recipe says to stir a mixture for 2 hours, an operator will document the start and stop times. If a step requires the pH of a solution to be between 6.0 and 6.5, a sample will be taken and tested during the process to confirm it's in range. These checks are built into the batch record and act as critical checkpoints to catch any deviations before they ruin the entire batch. If an IPC test result is outside the established limits, the process is stopped. This deviation triggers an investigation, as we discussed earlier. Let's say a sample from a reaction is tested for purity and it's lower than expected. The quality unit would work with production to figure out why. Was a raw material not pure enough? Was the temperature wrong? Did the reaction not run for long enough? By identifying the root cause, they can decide what to do with the current batch. It might need to be reprocessed or discarded, and more importantly, how to prevent the same problem from happening in the future. This is science in action, learning from our results to make the process better. After the production process is complete and the API has been isolated and purified, the job still isn't done. Now it's time for the final exam. Every single batch of API must be thoroughly tested by the quality control laboratory before it can be released for use in medicine. The QC lab is another critical function that, like the quality unit, must be independent of production. Their role is to perform a battery of tests to confirm that the API meets all of its predefined quality specifications. These specifications are a set of tests, procedures, and acceptance criteria that define what makes a good batch. These tests are incredibly detailed. For example, an identity test confirms that the material is, in fact, the correct API and not something else. An assay test measures the potency or strength of the API to ensure it's within a very tight range, like 98% to 102%. Perhaps most importantly, there are tests for impurities. These look for any unwanted substances, such as leftover raw materials, byproducts from the chemical reaction, or contaminants. The QC lab uses highly sophisticated analytical equipment like high-performance liquid chromatography, or HPLC, to detect and measure these impurities even at incredibly low levels. Only if the batch passes every single one of these tests can it be approved. But what happens when a company wants to change something? In manufacturing, change is constant. Maybe they find a better supplier for a raw material, or they want to use a new, more efficient piece of equipment, or they decide to scale up the batch size. You can't just make these changes on the fly. ICH Q7 requires a formal change control system. Any proposed change, no matter how small it seems, must be formally documented, reviewed, and approved by the quality unit and other relevant experts before it is implemented. This process ensures that no change is made that could accidentally harm the quality of the API. For example, if a company wants to switch to a new filter to purify the API, the change control process would kick in. The proposal would describe the new filter and why it's better. The quality unit would then assess the risk. Could the new filter material leach anything into the product? Does it remove impurities as effectively as the old one? They would likely require a validation study where they make several test batches using the new filter and perform extensive testing to prove that the change has no negative impact on the API's quality. This systematic approach to managing change is crucial for maintaining consistency and ensuring that the product remains safe and effective over its entire life cycle. Following the intricate rules of ICH Q7 might seem like a lot of work. All the documentation, training, testing, and validation requires a significant investment of time, money, and resources. So why do companies do it? The answer is simple. The benefits are immense, not just for the public, but for the company itself. The most important benefit, of course, is the profound impact on public health. When API manufacturers adhere to these high standards, it directly leads to safer and more effective medicines. Patients can trust that the medication they take today is the same quality as the one they took last month and the one they will take next year. This consistency is key. It reduces the risk of treatment failure due to a subpotent API, or worse, adverse events caused by harmful impurities. For patients with chronic conditions who rely on daily medication, this reliability is literally a matter of life and death. By building a global consensus on what constitutes good manufacturing, Ich Q7 has played a massive role in raising the quality of medicines worldwide. It ensures that whether a medicine is made in Indiana or India, it is held to the same high standard of safety and quality. This protects patients everywhere and fosters global trust in the pharmaceutical supply chain. From a business perspective, following Ich Q7 is also just smart. A robust quality management system leads to more efficient and reliable manufacturing processes. When you have well-trained personnel, qualified equipment and controlled processes, you have fewer mistakes. This means fewer rejected batches, less waste and less time spent on costly investigations and rework. The principle of right first time saves the company a tremendous amount of money in the long run. A reputation for high quality is also a powerful competitive advantage. Drug companies want to buy their APIs from suppliers they can trust. Furthermore, compliance with Ich Q7 is essential for regulatory approval. As we mentioned, agencies like the FDA will not approve a new drug for sale if its API manufacturer is not compliant. A failed inspection can lead to warning letters, import alerts that block a product from entering a country, and significant damage to a company's reputation and bottom line. On the other hand, a strong record of compliance builds a positive relationship with regulators, leading to smoother inspections and faster approvals. In the end, investing in quality isn't a cost, it's an investment in patient safety, business sustainability, and corporate integrity. So, we've journeyed through the world of active pharmaceutical ingredients and the comprehensive rulebook that governs their creation, Ich Q7. We've seen that it's not just a document, but a philosophy. It's a commitment to building quality into every step of the process, from the people and the building to the documents and the machines. We've broken down how a strong quality management system, led by an independent quality unit, acts as the central nervous system, ensuring that every action is deliberate, controlled, and documented. This isn't just about making a chemical, it's about manufacturing trust. We explored the importance of having well-trained personnel working in carefully designed facilities using equipment that is proven to be fit for its purpose. We learned the mantra, if it's not written down, it didn't happen, and understood how meticulous batch records provide a complete history of a product's life, enabling traceability and investigation. We saw how in-process controls act as guardrails during production, and how final quality control testing serves as the ultimate gatekeeper, ensuring that only pure, potent, and safe API ever leaves the factory. This systematic, science-based approach is what separates pharmaceutical manufacturing from all other industries. The journey to mastering Ich Q7 is ongoing. It requires a culture of continuous improvement, where every employee feels responsible for quality. Regular training is not just a requirement, it is an essential tool for keeping skills sharp and knowledge current. Audits and reviews aren't seen as tests to be passed, but as opportunities to learn and grow stronger. The principles of managing change and investigating deviations ensure that the system is not rigid but adaptable, capable of evolving while always keeping patient safety as its North Star. This dedication is what allows us to have confidence in the medicines we rely on. I hope this exploration has given you a new appreciation for the incredible science and dedication that goes into the little pills and potions that keep us healthy. The next time you see a medicine, think about the API inside it and the global network of scientists, engineers and technicians who followed the rigorous standards of Ich Q7 to bring it to you safely. Their commitment to good manufacturing practice is a commitment to all of us. Let's continue to be curious, to ask questions, and to appreciate the amazing power of science to improve and protect our lives. Thank you for joining me on this scientific adventure.